It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, brought to you by Fast Break Sports, the largest selection of cards and card supplies in Southwest Missouri. Now here's your host, Scott Puryear.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Puryear. As always, appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what we offer as we try to catch up with people with timely and pertinent interviews involving the world of sports locally, regionally, and beyond. And we're going to talk to one of our favorite guests, Chris Parker of the Ozarks Sports Zone, in our guest segment. Of course, Parker runs the one operation that really stays on top of everything in terms of high school sports, and we're at that busy time for that with baseball, track and field, girls soccer, softball, a little bit of everything going on, golf and tennis. So we'll catch up with Chris Parker here in a few minutes. As always, we open our podcast with our Things to Watch segment, taking a look at some of the hot events coming up the rest of this week, and whether it's on TV or attend live. But we start with Missouri State baseball. Been kind of a rough go for Coach Keith Gutten's Bears. They're 19-29 overall, 8-13 in the Missouri Valley Conference. They will have their second to last Missouri Valley series. They'll be at Belmont this weekend, and the Bears at that 8-13 mark, trying to get into the 8-team field for the Valley tournament. Belmont's just a step ahead of them, so it'll be a big series and a chance for the Bears to maybe go over there and win 2 or 3 and get a leg up and clinch that berth. They're back home the following weekend, May 17th, 18th, that weekend, with Southern Illinois coming in, a team that's currently in 6th place in the Valley standings. So Bears have some opportunities to make up ground now. That Saturday, May 18th, will be a Keith Gutten Day for that game. So mark your calendars, 11 a.m. start ceremony to honor Coach Gutten and in his 42nd and final season as Bears baseball coach. So hopefully a big turnout for that. Drury baseball is in the Great Lakes Valley Conference tournament this weekend. They're up in Marion, Illinois. Drury goes in as the number 3 seed. They were set to open against William Jewell, the 6th seed, on Wednesday of this week. Panthers 26-23 overall, 23-13 in GOEC play. They kind of stubbed their toe a little bit last week, final series of the regular season, losing 3 out of 4 at Southwest Baptist. So Drury will try to right the ship. One stat I thought was pretty interesting is Drury leads the GOVC in team ERA with a 5.56. If you're a baseball fan, that seems a little high for a league-leading team ERA. So clearly the GOVC is a league where there's going to be some runs scored in that postseason tournament as well. Springfield Cardinals are in Springdale, Arkansas this week, taking on the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. They'll be back home next Tuesday to start a home series there. I believe it's Midland coming in for that and be home for the rest of the week. Springfield 18-9 starting this week. They still lead the Texas League North by a couple games over the Arkansas Travelers. Again, Springfield Cardinals back in town next week with the struggles of the St. Louis Cardinals, mainly on offense, but really with pitching as well. Get over to Hammondsfield and catch Tink Hentz, the top prospect pitcher for St. Louis, pitching for Springfield again for a second season. He's 3-1 with a 3.60 ERA. He struck out 36 in 30 innings. Don't think he'll be in the Texas League in Springfield very long as they try to get him either to Memphis or all the way up to the big leagues here soon. So check that out. Finally, you've heard a lot about Jackson Cantwell, the Knicks shot put and discus sensation, obviously the number 1 football recruit in the country on the offensive line in the class of 2026, just a sophomore this year. Well, if you've ever wanted to watch him throw a shot put, you have your first and only opportunity in the area this Saturday. Knicks is hosting their district track meet. Understand that Jackson will throw the shot somewhere in that 11 a.m. to 12:30 range starting out, 12:30 p.m., and Nixa has taken the steps to actually put a temporary shot put ring in the middle of their football field infield there on the track so the fans can sit in the stands and watch Jackson throw, expecting a pretty good turnout to see that. So put that on your calendar for this Saturday if you want to catch Jackson Cantwell, the Missouri State record holder already in the shot put, and up to the last couple weeks had the longest shot put in the nation with a 72 feet effort here a few weeks back. Special guest this week on Around the Ozarks Sports Scene is a familiar voice for those who have tuned in regularly. He is Chris Parker of the Ozarks Sports Zone, Ozone. He is the chief honcho, the guy that doesn't sleep from August through May. Parker, thanks for joining me again.
Oh, appreciate you having me on. Getting ready for a fun little finish to the spring season here.
Absolutely. And there is light at the end of the tunnel now, because at least it means that school is out by the time you're done, and maybe a little bit of time for you and your stringers and everybody else with the Ozone to catch your breath, right?
Yeah, take a few weeks off and then start right into previews for the fall there in mid-July.
Absolutely. I remember those days as a sports information director. It used to be you had your summer, and then you didn't have your summer anymore because you were preparing for fall sports, and I know that's like that with you and the Ozone too. So we like to bring you on to talk championships because nobody's on top of it more than the Ozone. We've got multiple sports going right now, starting to wrap up. We'll get into each one and kind of get your thoughts. First of all, kind of tell us where they are and when. I've kind of done some of that research there, but I know the one that seems to kind of take the forefront in a lot of minds, because it's baseball season, is high school baseball, and it looks like maybe some districts starting. Is it this weekend for some of them, some of the smaller schools?
Miller's district and Hurley's district get going tomorrow.
Okay.
Actually. So. Yep, but this weekend for the small classes, pretty much all of them get going either Saturday, or most of them Saturday, and then a couple Monday.
Okay, and they're back at the ballpark formerly known as U.S. Ballpark, formerly known as Sky Bacon Stadium. Now, Ozark Mountain Sports Complex is the name, of course, out there on Highway 65 in Ozark, is the site for all classes, correct? That
is correct. That'll be everything's a little bit earlier this year, because with Memorial Day the way it falls. But they'll finish up on June 1st. Typically, you're playing into like June 3rd or 4th. But this year, June 1st, that's the end of the high school athletic season.
I noticed that. And what's the contract status on that facility in the state baseball?
I think it comes up due to the pandemic. I think it comes up for bid next cycle. They just did football bids. Which now you're going to have Missoula is going to host one more year, then to St. Joe, and I think baseball comes up this next year.
Yeah, I saw that. Why St. Joe, you think, for football?
I haven't had a chance to investigate, to be honest with you yet, so I do not know the answer. I don't know who bid on it. I've only seen rumors, but I haven't had a chance to reach out and figure out exactly who made bids and kind of why it landed there. But it was a little bit of a curious landing spot for such a far corner of the state.
And such a predominant sport, too, in terms of attendance and interest. And was that kind of your general thought is what? Yeah, I mean, St. Joe? Yeah.
It was very surprising. Like I haven't had a chance to investigate. I know there's renovations coming to Mizzou and Faroe Field. I don't know if that had a bearing on it, where they couldn't guarantee certain things. That's a definite possibility. But it's one of those I'm going to look into here once I get into the summer.
Well, high school baseball at the forefront now. As you mentioned, district starting now, and then obviously playing into the larger schools next week. I do know that we've got a couple of local teams that are number one in the state at top various polls. Glendale in Class 5, I believe, Rogersville in Class 4. Are there some small schools up there at the top too?
Yeah, we have a good representation. They're not right at the top, but like Licking, they're the defending state champs. They're 4 in Class 3, followed right by Forsyth at number 5, and Forsyth has the best pitcher in the class, so they can win any game he starts. Mansfield is sitting at 4 in Class 2, and Halfway sitting at 3 in Class 1. With Raj and Willard are 1 and 4 and 5, and then Glendale is up at number 7 in Class 6 after not getting ranked pretty much for the entire year up until this last ranking.
Yeah, what was the poll that I saw that has them number 1 overall in the state?
That wasn't the coaches poll. I go off of the coaches poll, and to be honest with you, the coaches do a very, very, very good job. With baseball, you can't ride the roller coaster. They kind of look at the holistic thing, and they do a very good job of ranking the teams based on a whole body of work and not a game-to-game result depending on who you have on the mound.
If we did a Parker poll, who would be your top 3 in the area?
Top 3 in the area, I would have to go probably Willard or Glendale. I mean, those are my T1s. Depending on who they have going, and then Nixa with the schedule they've played is right there, followed closely by Raj. That's kind of the grouping. But even at that, Webb City, they're right there, and they beat Willard in a head-to-head matchup. So baseball is the hardest one to rank because it's not meant to be played in one-game shots. I mean, it's just not. And anything can happen with these top teams in a single game go. I mean, if one pitcher doesn't have it or one pitcher really has it, it changes the entire complexion. I mean, just like with these college baseball tournaments you have going, like with the GLVC, for example, starting, everybody's got a really solid number one, and anything can happen in that first round. And then the depth really comes into play later. And that's high school baseball. It's these one-game shots that anything can happen.
Well, and it seems like in the last 2 or 3 years we've been blessed with several schools that had a good 1 and 1A. Is that the case now, or has everybody pretty much got the one, and then it's flip a coin?
Everybody's got a true ace, and so I wouldn't say it's necessarily like they drop off a lot, especially at the top. Like Rogeville has Ross Lawrence there atop the rotation. He's a D1 commit. Mm-hmm. Glendale's got Drew Wedgeworth there, who is committed to Missouri State as well. And Willard has a lot of depth there with their entire staff. So Willard, you could throw a lot of guys up there for them. But it's not like dropping off from Wedgeworth for Glendale or Ross Lawrence. I mean, there's going to be a drop-off because you're just not going to have that many D1 caliber pitchers. So those guys are the horses, and especially in classes 5 and 6, where you go from district straight to quarterfinals. If you're a top-seeded team, you can get by with a little bit shorter staff, not having to play that sectional followed by that quarter that classes 1 through 4 does. And even Forsyth with Tristan Hunter, they've got another guy right behind him who is a very, very good pitcher for his class. He's just not a University of Kentucky commit who didn't give up an earned run for the first month and a half of the season.
Which is kind of bizarre because you'd think it'd be the other way. The larger schools would be the ones that might have the depth because of numbers, and be more equipped to play more games in a short period. And instead, they're the ones that kind of catch a bit of break with that, with a round being skipped. But, Nick's coming into the year, I know they returned, I think, their top 5 guys in the batting order, had good young pitchers back. I think they go out to California and start 0-3 or 0-4. And have played a very challenging schedule. Are they a little bit even under the radar because of that, you think?
I would say just a little bit under the radar because you're right, the record doesn't jump out at you. But when I kind of started looking at, like, they went out to California. Obviously, California gets a probably a little bit earlier start than we do because of the weather. But those guys, when I did my midseason baseball notes, those California teams were just incredible. But it lends itself. Recently, they've kind of hit a bit of a skid here locally. With they lost to Kickapoo, who is 14-19, and lost to Republic, who is 18-13. Those are both district opponents, and that Kickapoo game is a very good example of what I was talking about. With everybody's got a really good one, and that's how good your one is on that day. Because Kickapoo and Cole Morrell has an incredible guy atop the rotation there. That on any day, Kickapoo can beat anybody. And that's what's going to make that district tournament seeding. Those seedings come out for that District 8 today. And your first-round matchups, you might see a Kickapoo at 14-19, but they have a win over Nixa. And that puts everybody on notice on really 1 through 6 in that district, 1 through 7 maybe, could win games. So Nixa, I would say, is underrated, but there's just a lot to like about what we have going in Class 6 this year. And it's not just Nixa that's underrated, in my opinion. It's the entire big class area. There's a lot of loving of those KC and St. Louis schools, and I don't think our Class 6 and 5 or Class 6 schools especially get the respect that they really deserve. I mean, Nixa last year, they almost beat they're just a few hits away from beating the eventual state champions, Liberty North. And Glendale not getting ranked until these last ones didn't make a lot of sense to me because of some of the things they've done against teams from out of the area. They
kind of beat up on each other, don't they? Because we have so many good 5 and 6 teams that play each other, and it kind of waters down the record, I think, for all of them. But have they announced the host site for that Class 6, and when does it start?
It'll be at Kickapoo. I don't have the start date on it because the bracket's not out, but it's at Kickapoo this year. And then the Class 5-1, again, don't have the bracket or the layout on that or the schedule, but it's at Branson this year. So they're at their full turf field down in Branson again.
I don't know, you expect both those, late next week, middle of next week for the start, or?
They should start early next week, and it should be a late next week championship game. They'll typically do, if memory serves from last year, since they can spread it out a little bit, they'll typically play first round early, take a day, then the semis take a day. So it's like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday situation is what I anticipate, but again, won't know until they release the actual bracket because they have that extra an entire week to play with because the quarterfinal isn't until the following weekend. So if you've got the time.
Is that why they wait so late to seed it and set up the everything about the district in those big classes?
Yeah, because there's still games that you need to see how things land. For example, Glendale Joplin played last night, and Glendale won big, run rule in 3 innings. But you still want to get that data point before you seed it. And there's no reason that you have to seed it early. I mean, you know roughly who you're going to play, and the coaches know when they're going to play. So they try to get every data point and get every team a chance to prove it. And that's why when you look at a schedule, a lot of the games you really need to look at are district matchups and conference matchups because that's typically where teams are going to throw their best pitchers. So kind of like when you talk about the Missouri State Bears and they play Arkansas in the midweek, they're not going to throw any of their top 3 weekend guys. They're throwing somebody else because the game, it doesn't matter as much for the conference standings. It's a little like that in baseball. While they may be playing a highly ranked team from St. Louis, neither team is probably throwing their ace because they've got to worry about getting district and conference standings set out for those purposes.
You know, you've touched on some of the players and where they're headed at the Division I level. I know Caden Cloud at Nixa, is a Kentucky commit, I believe. Wyatt Vincent's just a junior, but he's already a Bears commit when we're talking about Nixa there. Who are some guys maybe that the general baseball fan, sports fan, high school fan in the area maybe didn't know about coming in this year that have really emerged as someone to watch?
I think Willard got a lot of those guys with Hayden Larson's, Cameron Jennings, and Kalen Adams, their top pitching staff. In my midseason notes, Larson had thrown 28 innings and struck out 29, had an 0.32 ERA. And Jennings had struck out 20 across 22 innings, and then Adams was a really, really strong reliever. So I think those are some of the guys that maybe have flown under the radar a little bit, and then just you look up in there because Willard lost their district title streak last year to Glendale, and you wonder if they'll ever take a step back, and then there's just next guys up, and someone always comes up for Willard. They, as a staff, they had struck out 154 across 136 innings. Just an incredible number there. Webb City, they graduated a ton of talent from their Final Four team last year, returned only 1 All-State player. I think they had 4 or 5 total All-State players. And so Luca Beverland, 5-0 with a 1.18 ERA and 42 strikeouts. He was the one who shut down Willard. And West Plains has been very, very good this year, led by a Southeast Missouri State commit, Tank Sims, their catcher. He actually hit a walk-off grand slam against Rogersville 2 days ago. And he's a name that's been there, a D1 commit for a long time. When I did my midseason notes, he was hitting .625 just with 5 home runs and 10 doubles and a 1770 OPS. Those are slow pitch softball numbers. Well,
he's got to have with a name like Tank, he better hit it a distance too, shouldn't he?
Oh yeah, we did an athlete of the week on him, it was a missed opportunity for the play on words there. And Branson's really shown a lot this year. They're up to number 5 in the state rankings, and Coach Harriman down there has really turned them around very quickly to make them into a power. Colin Ross is kind of their guy. He's their number 1 pitcher, but Hunter Jones, Andrew Bristow, Kyler Langton, they're all a deep pitching staff. And so kind of like what you alluded to there, these schools at the higher levels of 4, 5, 6, they do have that depth of pitching that if someone doesn't have it, you can go to them. They do have that true number 1, but there's really not a ton of drop off from 1 to 2 to 3 or 4 even.
Well, I always like to put you on the spot before we move on from baseball. Potential state championship trophy holders on the final day. Who are they out there?
I mean, you got to start with Willard and Webb in Class 5. Willard's been up there number 1 all year, and Webb beat them head-to-head. Rogersville's got to be a favorite anytime you're going to be able to get Ross Lawrence out there, you got a shot. And it's hard to bet against Forsyth if they're going to win the games. They're going to win the games that Tristan Hunter goes out there and pitches. That with an arm like that, it's just was so dominant through 27 innings. He'd struck out 51, and at the plate he had a 540 batting average with an OPS of 1630. Just an incredible all-around player. And then behind him, they got Bryce Nolan, who had a 114 ERA when I did my notes, and then Braxton Gross, who had a 183 ERA. So I like them a lot. It's just what happens in the games that Tristan Hunter doesn't pitch. But again, anything can happen in baseball, as I've talked about with the one-game shot. So I think we probably get 2 to 3 champs. Who they will be, I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
Very good. And of course, the nice thing is it'll be right here in our backyard at Ozark Mountain Sports Complex, the old U.S. ballpark. So it'll be fun for local teams, obviously, to be able to sleep in their own beds and drive over and play at Ozark. So that'll be a great thing there. Moving on to track and field. And I was kind of one of those guys when I was a prep writer at the News Leader that I just loved poring over the meet results that came in, for somebody that set a record in the 100-meter or things like that. And it's kind of ironic that we're in an age of more technology than ever before, and it's harder than ever to get those meet-by-meet results. And I mean, when there was a paper and there was an agate page, we called it, you had a source for that. And it's hard for everybody to get that now, isn't it? Missouri Mile Split is kind of where you have to go.
Okay. They do all their stuff. That's where you have to find it. They're there. You just have to know where to look for them. Uh-huh. And MoMilesplit.com is where everybody runs their meets through these days. That's where the state meets are run through. They don't do a good enough advertising, in my opinion, on Misha's website how to find the results, because there's not a district results link there. But MoMilesplit does a really good job. They maintain a top list for every class, and it's all electronic, because everybody is basically kind of like in the wrestling season with track wrestling. You got to know where to look. It's the same thing for the track season. You got to know where to look, and it's MoMilesplit for track, and it's track wrestling for the wrestling season, and Game Changer for baseball. There are places to find it. You just got to know.
I've got an idea, Parker, and I know you hate that because you don't know what's coming. But, big fan of your boss, Brian McDonough, out there. If we're going to have weather school, can we have ozone school where you go from town to town and tell people how to find what, results-wise, since a lot of the older generation has no clue. Like, I didn't know that site was out there for track. They're used to looking on their agate page. I think ozone school with you and whoever's left in the sports department there to head out Spillane, you guys can go travel to Ava one night and eat barbecue and talk about, these websites and stuff. So are you in? Can we do that?
Oh, yeah, you get Brian to approve it, I'll be there.
There you go. I know you don't say no to Brian or anybody pretty much ever, because it means getting more stuff out there. So track and field, obviously the biggest story is the biggest guy in our area, Jackson Cantwell, at 6'8", 300 pounds, and what he continues to do with the shot put and the discus. I think he's got the national high for a shot put toss this year. He's already broken his state record there. Was it 72 he's at now? 72 something?
72, and I went to Missouri Mile Split's website. They do the national rankings there too, and there's a kid who's thrown over 80 feet according to their database, so he is now probably the number 2.
Oh, wow.
In the nation.
80 feet. Is that a national record or not?
It's pretty close to it. I don't know what the exact national record is, but it's really in the low 80s. The Missouri Mile Split says 8111 is what some kids threw at the Henry Clay, so that's a legit number, 8111. And whatever the national record is, it's low 80s, and it's stood since the 70s, I believe.
Wow. Well, I've seen on social media that, because we're basically seeing a unicorn right before our eyes with Jackson Cantwell and what he's doing with the field events, the throws, that the district meet at Nixa this Saturday, they're actually going to put a temporary shot put and discus, I think it's a shot put maybe, ring in the infield on the turf there at Nix's football stadium so people can see him throw. Because there's a lot of people I'm sure that have thought about it. They probably haven't gone because they don't want their car windshield broken by a shot put potentially, but kind of neat that Nix is going to take that step at the district on Saturday for anybody who's heard about Cantwell and heard about his shot put annex. Of course, both parents, former Olympians, will get a chance now to go watch him live if they want.
Yeah, that's very good on them because where the shot put currently is up at Nixa, it's not very fan friendly. So I guarantee they won't be putting the discus on the infield. That'd be a little dangerous. But yeah,
it added an element of danger to it. That maybe it needs that, But have you actually seen him? Yeah, seen him throw live yet?
Not this year because he hasn't thrown in Southwest Missouri except for at Pitt State. He's thrown at KU relays. He's thrown up at Jeff City. To my knowledge, he hasn't. And then he threw at Joplin for the conference meet. So Joplin, Pitt State, Jeff City, and KU relays are the ones that I know he's thrown at. So this is really the areas. Like he didn't even throw at his own Nix's home meet. So this is really the one and only time for people to just, if you want to go see him this year, to go see him because they do their sectional up at Waynesville and then they do their state up at Jeff City. So it's really. I'm glad to hear that Nixa is doing that. I hadn't heard that yet, and that's a service to just sports fans in general. It's one of those that if just go do it so you can say you saw it. Go see him so you can say you saw him throw way back in the day because he's going to be special in whatever path he pursues athletically.
Yeah. And he's got 2 years left after this, which is the amazing part, And I believe his mom said that the shot put will start around 11 a.m., so anyone listening out there that wants to make their way over there would be a great chance to see something that could be pretty special. I know that that district, is that pretty much all of our large schools? I know that I think Nixa Boys won the COC, Republic Girls won that side of the COC. Are those two teams to watch, obviously, in that district?
Yeah, they are. That district, we've had a few teams move into Class 5 that didn't necessarily used to be there. So that District 6 is Branson, Carthage, Joplin, Kickapoo, Neosho, Nixa, Ozark Republic, Parkview, Webb City. So that's District 6. And they're at Nixa. But poor Glendale, Central and Glendale and Willard got shipped off to St. Louis for their district because we have too many. So they just Kickapoo gets to come down to Nixa, but Glendale has to drive to St. Louis.
And of course, that just makes so much sense, Misha. Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out a way somehow. But I know it's tough, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is, but there's only so much you can do because, especially for track, when you're only getting 4 out. You can't load up one with extra. You got to cap it at a number so you're not putting one district at a disadvantage versus another. So it's one of those. Apparently, the line went right there between Kickapoo and Glendale to go. Some goes to Nixa, some goes to St. Louis.
Well, we talked about Cantwell. Who are the individual stars that maybe the sports fans missed this spring out there in track and field?
I'm going to head straight out to the probably not even your listening area, but Dora. They have a very special runner named Caden Nold. He was a state champ last year, 155 in the 800 and 49.40 in the 400, which are incredible times for anybody. But he's also just a junior and already running those really, really fast times. And Dora has actually a very great recent history of these middle sprints. They had Ashlyn Van Natter a few years back who at one point won the 1, 2, 4. And I'm not sure if she won the 8, but she definitely won the 1, 2, and 4. So there's a lot of talent there that they really do well out in Dora in the training. Up in Class 4, Camdenton, Kyle Edson, he leads the state in the javelin actually with 57 meters. I'm still trying to get used to moving over to meters from feet. The conversions in my head aren't quite as good as they used to be. The clubber's got a girl named Malia Clark. She leads Class 3 in the triple jump, and she is a Missouri State commit out of Clever, who is really good. Gracie Troster of Republic is a real threat to be an all-state finisher in all 3 distance events, which is very, very hard to do in that class in Class 5. Just there's an incredible amount of talent there. Waynesville has a really good sprinter and then a really good middle distance runner named Tyrell Finn, who was an athlete of the week. Tyrell is a low 150s guy. Like, he's a legit he could run D1 if he wanted to for the 800, but soccer is his passion, so he's bringing that speed to Drury next year to play soccer. So Drury's going to have a guy on the field who's capable of running a sub 420 mile and a 153 in the 800, which is a nice get for that program.
And Springfield, in terms of the SPS schools, do we have anybody that's really stood out, or is it kind of a down cycle in track in town?
I wouldn't call it necessarily a down cycle as much as an up cycle for kind of the area. Because Republic, they're not a traditional, you wouldn't call them a traditional distance power, but Gracie is just another level talent. And she's kind of like taken over there. The Kickapoo girls, they won the Ozark Conference title, so they've got a good depth of talent there, and they're going to be a threat to in that district meet. But at the very top of the register of contending for state titles, there is not as many. The Araya Moore, I believe is the name, for Glendale. She's one of our best hurdlers in the area. She won out at the SBU meet. But yeah, when I'm looking at the very top of the register, it's kind of a lot of those outlying areas that mix as the Republic.
Fun fact for you, Parker, if you want to dive into it and they win something, both Araya and Malia that you mentioned out of Clever and Glendale were gymnastics teammates of my daughter, who's a junior at Nixa. And they were high-level gymnasts back in junior high and earlier than that. And so, you know, a lot of times you wonder where gymnasts wind up. Sometimes they're divers, you know, for swimming and diving. Those are kids that were great athletes that were gymnasts early on. And so proof that, you know, that's a good transition for those athletes.
Oh, it is. And so they ended up as a hurdler and a jumper. And Malia is a hurdler as well, but typically you find the gymnasts, they end up at the pole vault mat. Because the ability to contort your body and bend over a bar, it's a very natural transition. You can, if you go out and talk to any elite pole vaulters, and almost all of them started out in gymnastics in some form. Interesting.
Golf, of course, had district golf tournaments, I believe, yesterday or this week. Of course, this will be out on Thursday. So those were held this week. State meet early next week, correct?
That is correct. The only one we have locally, I believe, for state golf is at Rivercut, like right here. Because golf, they typically spread out across the state to give different places a chance to host. Twin Hills is hosting Class 1, but really Rivercut for Class 3 is our local one. Ozark, and starting in Class 5, Ozark and Nixa, they won the top two team spots there with 306 and 309 respectively. Ethan Mustard from Lebanon, former athlete of the week from last week, he was the individual medalist there with a 70, won that meet by 2 strokes. Class 4, we had Carl and Rolla went 1-2. Carl Junction actually dipped below 300, shot a 299 as a team, with the Jonathan and Chayton Jordan from Rolla going 1-2, followed close with Ben Presley also tied for second for Branson. So then locally, it'll be the Class 3 at Rivercut, and our local representative there will be Rogersville. And it was an incredible team, out there at Horton Smith. 297 won it as a team. Raj was at 298, and then Blair Rooks was at 304. So 3 really, really low team scores, especially for Class 3. And Jackson Bailey from Monette shot 2 under to win that. He is a real threat to win that state golf title. He's kind of been knocking on the door, just a really solid, consistent golfer throughout the year.
And he'll be at Rivercut, is that right?
That one's at Rivercut.
So he's got a little bit of a local advantage, I would think, there, because I'm sure he's played Rivercut a million times. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and easy for him to get up and know it. And that's with golf. I mean, we know who the contenders are, but, I mean, week to week, I mean, not lately, I guess, but on the PGA Tour, you don't know who's going to win for the most part. You can kind of guess, but it's who comes out and shoots really well for those 2 rounds. And then wrapping up, Willow Springs and Stratford are our Class 2 team representatives, and then Ashgrove and Lockwood representing in Class 1. The
kid from Lebanon, what year is he? Mustard kid?
Mustard, I think a junior off the top, but I do not know off the top.
Okay, well, I mean, I've got to come with this, Parker, but, Mish found it very hard to cut the mustard out of the state championships. And I guess he probably went out and took a big lead, and no one else was able to catch up, right?
Oh, there it is.
I'll be here all day. Tried the veal. So we've got the threats there, and I know Catholic had a kid too that was up high in his district. Is it Bakirch? Maybe Jack Bakirch with a 71. I saw that score. So
he shot a 71. He was the only other one in the top 6 for the area. Bryce Marshall for Raj was 7th, and Stuart McDonald, who was the kicker and a really good soccer player for Raj, kicker for the football team and soccer player for Raj, was 10th place. So Rogersville really looking to contend for a state title there.
Girls soccer, kind of going through the Ozone side and going back for this spring. And, gosh, can you believe it? The same names tend to pop up. Kickapoo, Catholic, Nixa. Am I missing anybody in girls soccer that's going to be a district favorite and maybe to go on as deep as they can?
Not really. Glendale moved up to Class 4 this year. Them and Catholic have a pretty good rivalry in Class 3, but now Glendale's up in Class 4, so you're looking at that district, and Nixa's 19-1. So Nixa, relative to their standards, might have been down the last couple of years, but they've been playing a lot of young girls, and now those players are really showing that they could be contenders at the state level in Class 4, which is very hard to do with a 19-1 record. Kickapoo sitting at 17-6 is the 2 seed in that district, with Glendale and Republic at 3-4, followed, and Ozark is your 5 seed at 14-10. So that's a really solid district. Got even tougher when Glendale moved up. That leaves that Class 3 district with Catholic as the heavy favorite, but Marshfield is right there. They've got one of the state's all-time greatest scorers, Callie Watson. She scored 200 goals for her career and counting. Springfield Catholic won the regular season matchup, but when you have a talent like that on the field, you can't discount it. And so Catholic and Marshfield look like the heavy favorites there. Both 17-win teams. Marshfield is 17-2, but nobody else in that district has above a 500 record. And then you drop down to Class 2. Rogersville has again been very good. They graduated Nikki and Nikita, the Wood sisters, last year, and you thought, oh, they might take a step back. Well, they've got this freshman that could go down as one of the great scorers in Rogersville history and be one of the better players in the area over the next several years. And they are 19-3 with Bolivar at 14-4. So one of those two is coming out. And then in Class 1. Lakeway way up north there. Greenwood's the 3 seed, so a little bit less local, like extremely local, high-end talent there with the chance for state title. But classes 2 through 4, we've got some really, really good top-end soccer teams. I
think I went back through and saw that Nixa beat Kickapoo 2-1 in the regular season. Is that the only matchup between the two?
I believe so. For soccer, they typically play just the one game. Baseball, you may run into each other, especially like basketball. You run into other teams in tournaments all the time. But soccer, they really try to have a diversified schedule, playing those St. Louis teams. So the Kickapoo Shootout, for example, Nixa played Jackson, Hickman, and Harrison because they just bring in these teams so that they can see different teams, and you can too. But just how close that district could be. Republic is sitting there at the 4 seed, and that's who Nixa could have to play in the semifinal. And they beat Republic 2-1. They beat Ozark 2-0. I mean, you're talking just narrow margin. That even with Nixa being a 19-1 team, they've got several 1 and 2 goal wins over teams within their district that could make it pretty exciting soccer to watch.
Kind of give us the roundup on a couple of the other sports. Boys tennis is here in town at Cooper late next week. Cooper Tennis Complex, and then softball. I know it's kind of a weird split because is the main championship in the fall? Is it the spring? Start with softball and kind of explain that whole concept to me.
They several years back, I think probably the mid-2010s, like 2014, 2015, they gave small schools the option to play spring softball, with the thought being, and it has played out true, the thought being that a school like Mansfield or Seymour, they can't field softball and volleyball teams, so they have to pick and choose. And so they gave those teams and the athletes that they need to do that. So they gave those teams the options to move over to the spring, which a lot did. And so Seymour and Mansfield now have volleyball teams. Ozark can't move to the spring. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what the cutoff is, but there's a cutoff. If you're bigger than this, you have to play in the fall. And so, but if you're below that number, you have the option. So a lot of teams, small school teams, have moved to the spring, except for there's some holdouts like the Polk County League, Walnut Grove, Dadeville, all those schools. Halfway they still play fall softball, and so that's kind of the break you have. So they're two different sports. I mean, they're the same sport, but there's not a junior varsity or varsity championship or a real championship or not real. They're real championships. They're just, you get to pick. And that's why I try to explain to people when I clarify, this is their first spring softball district title. Well, they may have won in the fall, but this is the first time since they moved to the spring they've won it. It's considered there's a different champion. There's a Class 2 champion in the fall, Class 2 champion in the spring.
And we had some champions last year in the spring, didn't we? Mount Vernon, I believe, weren't they one of them?
Yes, Mount Vernon won it last year, and they just lost last night to 32-1 Diamond.
Oh, wow.
In their district title game. Yep, Diamond is those two teams. Diamond won 2 years ago. Mount Vernon won last year, and then Diamond is the odds-on favorite to win again this year. There were a lot of upsets in Class 2. Only 4 of the top 10 teams in the state for the state rankings will make it to the final 8 this year. Stop me if you've heard this before, but the Fairgrove girls athletic team has won a district title. They as a 3 seed, Fairgrove came out of their district and is moving on in the Class 2 tournament. Willow Springs won. Forsyth moved on, and Forsyth will have to face that 32-1 juggernaut Diamond on May 14th, a week from yesterday. And then Houston is the odds-on favorite to get out. So we should have the area is guaranteed. Southwest Missouri should be guaranteed 2 at the Final 4 in Class 2, and maybe have 3 of the 4. If Fairgrove can win, we could have up to 3 of the 4 Final 4 teams in Class 2, which shows you the dominance that we have on the small school softball side. Down in Class 1, Ashgrove won their district title in 8 innings over Purdy at Purdy. They will face Liberal, and then the Plato girls, they won by run rule to win their district, and that is what you're looking at. All those quarterfinals are next Tuesday, and they line up with a lot of the district baseball championships. So next Tuesday is a busy day in the area, so you can probably guarantee it's going to rain.
And was it at Killian that following weekend or next weekend?
No, they do not do it. They do not play state in the spring. They don't play it on the weekend. They play it on a Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, okay. But it's at Killian the following week then.
Yep, it is at Killian.
Okay.
That's kind of the layout on state softball.
And then tennis. Do we have anybody that team or individual that's a legitimate threat that's out at Cooper next week?
Typically we don't in classes 2 and 3. Those St. Louis private schools and the big St. Louis schools are just really tough to compete with. But Class 1, since they've gone to 3 classes, Class 1 has kind of become a place where we can compete locally. And Rogersville, Forsyth, Bolivar, and then a Monette Carl Junction, the winner of that. One of those 4 teams will make it to the Class 1 Final 4. We don't have teams through yet for the big classes. Central and Branson are supposed to play today at 4 o'clock. Unless they can go inside, it seems unlikely to play. So one of those is coming out. Central is the 1 seed. Branson is the 2 seed there. Branson's had a lot of success lately. And Central dropping down a class, they've had a lot of success in Class 2. And then Joplin and Kickapoo are the final 2 teams remaining up in Class 3. That district championship was also supposed to be today.
Well, before we let you go, Chris, where are we on the boys volleyball? I know Nixa has played, and they've had to basically go to Kansas City to play just about every match on the road. Is it starting to take hold? Are there more schools in the area? Kind of give me the rundown on that, because they have a championship this year, right?
They do. They are a full MSHA sport, full real championships. Everything is fully sanctioned. But yeah, I was a little surprised that Nixa was the only team that hopped on starting out with this first year. I would expect more next year. I know that there's a boys volleyball like AAU program that I really think is going to start taking hold. I just wonder how many teams just weren't ready, how many schools just weren't ready to make the jump once it was approved, because then you got to hire coaches, get approvals for teams and stuff like that. But Nixa, they did complete their district tournament yesterday. Got swept 3-0 by Eureka. They had to drive up to Eureka, but that district was Wildwood, Eureka, Parkway South, Marquette, Parkway West, Rockwood, Borgia, Westminster. So they were the only team anywhere near Southwest Missouri, and it's a little bit of a disadvantage for them overall. It looks like the closest team, was St. Louis or Kansas City. There was no Columbia didn't have a team. Demo didn't have a team. Literally, if you look at the map, Nixa was on an island of its own. But I would expect to see that start to change quickly within the next few years, especially at the bigger schools.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about it, and you already have a gym, you already have a volleyball net. Your gym is probably empty in the spring with everything outdoors with spring sports. It just seems like it'd be a natural. And, we live in a copycat society, so if the other COC schools see that, then, hey, we got to start that too. So maybe we'll see it coming here soon.
And the thing, if you looked at Nix's roster as well, it was a lot of kids with names you didn't necessarily recognize from other sports. So that was really good to see these kids get a chance to compete.
Absolutely. Nobody does it better than Chris Parker in the Ozone. Parker, as always, appreciate your coming on with us and giving us the rundown. It's something we can't do. I don't think any human other than you can do it and keep track of everything, but we appreciate you, man.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chris. Finally, it's time for our Scott's Thoughts segment here on the podcast. It's my ramblings and musings about things going on locally and nationally in the world of sports. We start with Rashee Rice. What is wrong with you? The Chiefs receiver coming off a great rookie effort, expected to be, again, one of Patrick Mahomes' favorite targets. Had the problem several weeks ago with the high-speed wreck down in the Dallas Metroplex area that caused several injuries. Already been warned by the Chiefs and expecting a suspension from the NFL of maybe 2 to 6 games. Gets in trouble again, allegedly, this week for pushing a photographer at a nightclub. It'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs do here. On one hand, he's a rising star in the league. If he could just stay home for a while, that might be a good plan for you, Rashee. Making dumb, stupid kid mistakes at 24 years old. But at the other hand of it, what do you do? I mean, how much do you tolerate as an organization with this? And again, when you push a photographer, there's going to be 2 stories to it. There may be a little bit of baiting going on, who knows. But anyway, the Chiefs have got to be close to their wits' end with Rashee Rice. I think they'll have a very stern sit-down talk with him about this is it, and then we'll see what the NFL penalty is. But you can rest assured that they will be without Rashee Rice being the Chiefs for maybe up to half a season, which makes it even more important that they were able to draft Xavier Worthy out of Texas and then brought in Hollywood Brown as a free agent. So stay tuned on that. Cardinals watch is officially on in terms of any kind of changes. They're awful right now. The fan base is frustrated and dwindling. Could continually evaporate over the course of the summer if it's not something done here soon. Of course, St. Louis Cardinals management has been hesitant to do any kind of changes. It starts with John Mozeliak. He's not the GM in name. He's a higher title, but he really runs the show for them. He's been safe all this time. Possibly time to start taking a look at his position and some of the decisions, which included hiring Ollie Marmol as the manager, as a young guy, an unproven young guy, and it's just not happening right now. But honestly, I think what's going to happen, I don't think Marmol's going to get fired yet. Check back a month from now. But right now, I think hitting coach Turner Ward is the one that's probably on the hottest seat. This offense has been just awful. There are good hitters traditionally over their careers up and down that lineup. They've already had to send Jordan Walker back to Memphis to try to get him straightened out. Cardinals are batting .218 as a team, which is 27th out of 30 Major League Baseball teams, and second to last in the National League, only to the Reds at .207. So I think that might be the change that's coming, and definitely one that's needed. That's going to do it for this week's edition. As always, thanks for listening, and a big thank you to our great sponsor, Fast Break Sports. If you're into sports cards and collectibles or memorabilia, go see Fast Break Sports for all your needs for that man cave. They're located just to the south of the Burger King there at South Campbell and Battlefield. Go see Fast Break Sports. Big thank you to them. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on Around the Ozarks Sports Zone.